Welcome to my views and news, another video for you. Firstly, viewers, Tigray government officials are formally accusing Eritrean military of lootings, destruction in Tigray. And now pictures are being shared, not by officials of the government, by some activists. The pictures show alleged lootings by Eritrean military in Tigray, but the pictures are fake. And some activists are sharing these pictures in social media with tens of thousands of followers. Secondly, protests are being held in the US and London. Protests were held for the release of Fikre Mariam Hagos, Catholic bishop who was arrested in Eritrea last month. The bishop was one of those voices in Eritrea which had the courage to stand up to Eritrean government. I have read contents of one of his address which he delivered around 2 years ago, and he was very vocal. In that address, he criticized Eritrean government. Details for you. Thirdly, Sudanese intelligence agency chief and Ethiopian intelligence head has held some discussions. Ethiopian intelligence agency chief was in Sudan for a 2-day visit. Some key issues were discussed. And lastly, Somalia's president is busy visiting frontline regions and cities in the war against Al-Shabaab. Firstly, viewers, now it is official position of Tigray regional government that Eritrean soldiers are killing civilians, they are looting properties. Yesterday, Professor Kindea said that oxygen plant of Axom Hospital was dismantled and stolen by Eritrean forces. He talked about material and equipment of water infrastructure, water system infrastructure, that the materials, equipment were taken away by Eritreans. Though no evidence is being shared, only statements are being released. Yesterday, some pro-Tigray activists shared pictures. They claim the pictures showed Eritrean soldiers looting properties in Tigray. We analyzed the pictures. The pictures are not related to Tigray. You can see one of the pictures on your screen. This picture is being shared since yesterday to prove that Eritrean military is involved in lootings and destruction in Tigray. But the picture was originally shared in July by some Kimant activists who claimed that Amhara forces, Amhara militias were looting Kimant properties in the Amhara region, and the soldiers shown in this pic are not Eritrean soldiers. They are soldiers from the Amhara region of Ethiopia. This picture is not linked to what is happening in Tigray. It does not mean that we are saying that no destruction, no lootings are happening in Tigray. Yes, some incidents could be happening. Eritrean government is silent. It is not addressing the questions being raised by Tigray regional government. But the pictures being shared by Tigray activists are not related to Tigray. These are old pictures. Secondly, viewers, protests were carried out in the past few hours in the USA and London for the release of Catholic bishop who was arrested in Asmara, Eritrea last month. His name is Fikre Mariam Hagos, Catholic bishop. Last week, Eritreans protested in the Vatican City for the release of Fikre Mariam Hagos. And a few hours ago, they protested in the USA and in London. Fikremarim Hagos was arrested in October last month when he arrived on Asmara airport from a foreign trip. He was arrested and since then he's been in prison. Where is he? What are the charges filed against him? It's not clear. But Fikremarim Hagos was one of the brave figures in Eritrea who had the courage to stand up to Eritrean government. It's difficult to be in Eritrea and to criticize Eritrean government. He was one of those people who had the courage to speak, to criticize the government. In an address in 2019, I think around 2 years ago, in Saganati area, he spoke and he criticized Eritrean government actions that Eritrean soldiers were entering church premises without any reason, and that security forces should do what they are established for. He criticized Eritrean government. He talked about human rights abuses as well. It's difficult to say all these things while being in Eritrea. He was the one who was questioning the Eritrean government, questioning the actions of Eritrean forces. So how can such criticism be tolerated in Eritrea, where there is limited press freedom, limited freedom of expression? That is why he is in prison. But protests are being seen in several parts of the world for the release of Abune Fikremarim Hagos. Thirdly, viewers, Sudanese and Ethiopian intelligence chiefs have held some discussions in Sudan. Ethiopian intelligence agency chief visited Sudan for 2 days, and there he held some top level meetings. He met with General Abdul Fattah al-Burhan, Sudanese army chief, head of Sovereignty Council. Reportedly, he held a meeting with General Hamati as well, who is vice president of Sovereignty Council and very close to Ethiopia. Discussions were held about sharing of intelligence, bilateral ties, economic cooperation. But mainly, the two countries are involved in dispute over Al-Fashaga Dam, good. And thirdly, some foreign groups are operating, Ethiopian groups are operating on Sudanese soil. Reportedly, Ethiopian groups operating on Sudanese soil was one of the issues raised by Ethiopian intelligence agency chief. Secondly, Al-Fashaga came under discussion too. Ethiopia wants Sudan to ensure that Sudanese soil is not used by Ethiopian armed groups. Now, when peace deal has been struck, Ethiopia wants to ensure that training camps of Tigray fighters on Sudanese soil are closed. Some Ethiopian officials accuse Sudan of backing Kemet, Gomez and Oromo fighters too. So after the signing of the peace deal, now Ethiopian government is trying to ensure that Sudan is not a safe haven for armed groups operating on Sudanese soil. Will Sudan cooperate with Ethiopian government? That remains to be seen. Reportedly, some assurances have been given by Sudanese authorities in the meetings held between the intelligence chiefs of the two countries in Sudan. Lastly, viewers, Hassan Sheikh Somalia's president is rallying support for his campaign against Al-Shabaab, armed group operating in Somalia, in control of 1/3 of Somalia, and Somalia's government now has made it mandatory for everyone in Somalia, for every news outlet in Somalia, to address Al-Shabaab as Khawarjis. So Al-Shabaab is not addressed as Al-Shabaab now, rather Al-Shabaab fighters are called Khawarjis. Khawarijis was the term used by Muslims in the past when some factions tried to fight Muslims. So they were branded as non-Muslims. Khawarijis from Kharij. Kharij means thrown out of something, excluded from something. So if they are called Kharijis, it means they are out of Islam. They are not part of Islam. So that is why this term has been coined, not coined, it has been used for Al-Shabaab fighters by Somalia's government. Hassan Sheikh was seen in Galmudug regional state and in Hirshabele in the past 48 hours. In Galmudug, he visited Dhusa Marib, and in Heran region of Hirshabele, he was seen in Mahas. He held meetings with Somalia's National Army soldiers there, held meetings with locals, local population as well. Al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah Sufi followers were there in Galmudug to welcome Hassan Sheikh. So Hassan Sheikh is trying to create unity in the fight against Al-Shabaab. He is much more active if you compare him and his predecessor Farmajo in the fight against Al-Shabaab. Can this fight produce results? It's difficult to say, but at least he is trying to create internal unity. He is trying to rebuild Somalia's army. He is trying to involve regional leaders, regional forces, regional clans, tribes. That is how he is trying to continue this sustained effort to wipe out, or you can say to contain Al-Shabaab fighters. So far, we cannot say that Al-Shabaab has been pushed back from lots of territories. But at least government is trying to continue the momentum of the offensive against Al-Shabaab fighters. Watch a video from Hassan Sheikh's visits, ongoing visits in regional states, Hirshabele and Galmudug. Thanks for watching.
intaba si oo yoomiye ah ayaa runtii warbixintaas aan u helaa taas waa ogahay aad iyo aad waana waxaan haddaati idin dhahay